Hello and welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Janine Shepard, and I am the Senior Manager of Philanthropy Events here at Food and Water Action, and I will be your host today. As people are joining, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. We would love to see your name, where you're joining us from, and what brings you here today. For any of you new to Food and Water Action, welcome. We are a national organization fighting for safe food, clean water, and a livable climate for all. Right now, our food and water and our climate are constantly under threat from corporations and moneyed interests who put their profit over the health and survival of our planet and our communities. And these corporations have seized control of the very institutions that were built to protect us. We at Food and Water Action mobilize people to reclaim their political power, hold our elected officials accountable, and resist corporate control, ensuring we all have the essential resources we need to thrive. We're in a critical moment in time. We're nearly halfway through a second Trump presidency, and we've seen this administration's undeniable threat to all we hold dear. We are facing an AI data center building boom that is skyrocketing our energy bills and using up our water. We're facing plastic pollution so severe that most of us are eating, drinking, and breathing particles of plastic every day. We're facing industrial contaminants in our food and water, as well as the worsening effects of climate change. And we're facing the violence of a Trump authoritarian actions. Winning the 2026 midterm elections is critical to reining in Trump. And Food and Water Action is building power behind some of the most important races in the country. Today, we're going to talk about these races and what we're doing to support climate champion candidates. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do to maximize your impact on these incredibly important upcoming elections. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a couple of Zoom reminders and announcements for upcoming events. So first of all, a few quick notes about Zoom. If you'd like to turn on closed captioning to add subtitles to your screen, click Show Captions in your Zoom toolbar, and we'll add further instructions for that in the chat as well. Please use this chat box throughout the evening to share your thoughts and your reactions to what you're hearing. And this chat is also where we will share information and links, so keep an eye out for those. There's a separate Q&A box where you can add questions for our speakers. So if you have questions for any of our speakers tonight, please put those in the Q&A box so we're sure to see them, and that's separate from the chat. We've set aside a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. And finally, we are recording this event, and I will share that recording with you in a follow-up email I will send tomorrow. I also want to tell you about two upcoming webinars from our sibling organization, Food and Water Watch. I'll be hosting a webinar on Wednesday, September 16th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time called How to Stop a Data Center in Your Backyard and Beyond. And we'll put a link to sign up for that in the chat. And then from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time on October 21st, we'll be talking about the water affordability crisis. And we'll put a link for that in the chat so you can sign up for that one as well. I want to take a moment before we get started to acknowledge that we are all coming together in community today with a diverse set of backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences, but with a common belief in the importance of fighting for clean water, safe food, and a livable future for all. As you share your thoughts and questions in the comments, please make sure to keep them respectful. We do have someone monitoring the chat, and we will ask anyone not abiding by this request to leave the event. With your help, we at Food and Water Action are building towards the 2026 midterm elections. We're building and expanding our electoral team with canvassers and phone bankers and investing in materials and tools needed to reach voters, win these fights ahead, and take back the House. There are many ways for you to get involved with our work, whether that's joining our volunteer network, attending events like you are right now, or supporting us with a donation. Thank you so much for being here, for showing up, and for your generosity. The work we do is people-powered in every sense. We don't take corporate funding, so we are not beholden to their interests. Our support comes from people like you, so we can focus on the well-being of our communities and our planet. Thank you so much for the necessary support you are contributing to the work we're all doing together. And with that, let me introduce my first speaker tonight, Sam Bernhardt. Sam is Food and Water Action's political director, and he is here to give us an overview of the importance of the upcoming midterms, highlight the races that we're focusing on, and introduce you to a few of our endorsed candidates. Sam, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be talking about this work with everyone. And I'm just clicking over to my slides. All right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Sam Bernhardt. I'm the political director with Food and Water Action, and I'm speaking to you from New York. And first, I want to explain why Food and Water Action approaches elections, gets involved in elections to start with, because our approach is a little different. We get involved in elections for a few important reasons. The first is elections are a great impetus for urgency. They are an opportunity to bring new people in by recruiting and training new volunteers, people who maybe only understand political life through sort of the lens of elections. It's a great way to reach those new people and get them involved um, in our year-round issue organizing. So for us, elections are really a tactic within our broader campaigns to build power and win on our issues. So elections, we don't get involved just to win. We get involved to expand our movement as a tool. Um, that being said, uh, these specific elections that we're talking about are really important in their own right, and we do want to win. So these midterm elections are a huge opportunity to hold Trump accountable. We've had 2 years of Trump corruption with Congress standing idly by, and we truly cannot take another 2 years. Flipping Congress and maybe the Senate is imperative to bring a modicum of transparency and accountability to our federal government. Um, Democrats only need to win a handful of seats to do this. They need to net 4 seats in the Senate, which is a tougher lift. But Republicans, they understand that they're in trouble, which is why they are gerrymandering every state that they can in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling, the terrible Supreme Court ruling earlier this year. Um, Even with all that gerrymandering, we still have a very good shot of winning the seats in Congress that we need to win. So, what are the races that we're focusing on? Um, well, we need to flip 4 seats, and Food and Water Action has a set of 5 priority districts that we're focused on. And the criteria that we use for deciding what are going to be our priority districts is a few things. First, these need to be districts where the candidate who we're working in support of is aligned with our positions. We're not going to go to bat for someone who we don't have faith in. We also are only engaging in districts that are true battlegrounds, places where our work is going to make a difference. And then, as I spoke to before, we're also only doing this work in places where we want to build power or where we have power already. And then lastly, a new element that we're just rolling out with this election cycle is all of our federal endorsements are Food and Water Action members in that state where the congressional district is or the Senate races. We are surveying our members, and we're only making our endorsements and our decisions on priorities after consulting our members. I should say this work has already started. The election has already started with primary elections, and Food and Water Action has been actively supporting climate champions in a bunch of primary elections, going from the top left and going in a clockwise direction. We've got Ana Lilia Mejia, who won a special election and so is currently a member of Congress representing New Jersey's 11th congressional district. Um, Also, moving over to Chris Rabb in the middle on the top, we've got he's been a long time ally of ours as a Pennsylvania state representative, working with us in Harrisburg on things to fight on a bunch of campaigns, including fighting data centers. And he won his May primary in a heavily blue district, so he's going to be representing Pennsylvania's third congressional district in the next Congress. We also endorsed Randy Villegas. I'll talk about him more in a minute. He's in the top right, and then bottom right, we've got Michigan State Representative Donovan McKinney, who defeated an incumbent in his primary election 2 weeks ago in Michigan's 13th congressional district, which is the Detroit area. And then lastly, in the bottom left, we've got our old friend Will Lawrence, who many at Food and Water Action organized with when he was one of the co-founders of Sunrise, and he won his contested primary election also in Michigan, Michigan's 7th congressional district 2 weeks ago. And that's a district that is going to be a battleground in November. All of these candidates strongly support a national moratorium on data centers. They all support passing federal legislation to make polluters pay for the climate chaos that they've caused. And they have also all signed the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge. So that's the work that's happened already. But we're here to talk about the November election. So I want to start off by showing the results of polling that Food and Water Action conducted in Iowa in February, showing that water is a top issue for Iowa voters. I'm going to talk about the Iowa races in a second, but want to give this important context. Iowans are dealing with huge amounts of industrial agriculture pollution that is driving the state's cancer rate up. It's one of only two states where cancer rates are increasing. And Iowans are understanding that we need to fix the dam water. So this polling, this results from our polling. What it shows is when we set out to do this polling, we sat down with our pollster global strategy group and we said we want to be able to show how much people in Iowa care about water and we want to be able to compare it to something like affordability. And they kind of laughed at us and they're like, well, of course, affordability is the number one issue. It is not. Iowa's rising cancer rates are more important to Iowa voters. They see them as more Iowa voters see it as a more as a very serious issue than they do cost of living. So 72% of Iowa voters see rising cancer rates as very serious versus 61% see cost of living as very serious. And then water quality and water pollution is pretty much in the same ballpark as cost of living at 58% very serious. So our issues in Iowa are the most important issue that people want to hear about at the door, with a phone call, with a text message, and we're building a lot of power on the ground right now. And so that's why we're really excited to be. And these endorsements haven't happened yet. They're coming actually in 2 weeks, so you're getting a kind of sneak peek. But we're going to be endorsing former Iowa State Representative Christina Bohannon, who is running in Iowa's first congressional district, ran also 2 years ago and lost by just a couple hundred votes to now incumbent Marinette Miller Meeks. And uh, uh, we're we're going to be, while we're talking to voters about Christina and her positions on water, we're also going to be talking to them. In the bottom left, you've got current state representative Josh Turek, who is the Democratic nominee for Iowa's open U.S. Senate seat. And we're also going to be talking to them about Chris Jones, who you see in the bottom right. He is our longtime ally, a water researcher who has made his life's work educating people, raising the alarm, sounding the alarm about Iowa's water and cancer crises, and he's running for Secretary of Agriculture. So all really important races that we're going to be talking to people in Iowa. And then next door in Iowa's third congressional district, we're also going to be talking to people about State Senator Sarah Trungariat, who's running for Iowa's third congressional district. Between these two districts, we're going to be knocking on 60,000 doors and have 10,000 conversations with Iowans about the water crisis and these candidates and how voting for them is going to make a meaningful difference in this crisis. So that's Iowa, which is a really exciting race. Moving on, New York 17 and in New York's Hudson Valley. I saw at least one person who got on the call is coming in from there. And we've been running a volunteer canvas, door knocking canvas to hold Representative Mike Lawler accountable for months. Lawler's district is one of the few that Kamala Harris defeated Trump in, while the down ballot Republican congressional candidate won. So there's a big flip opportunity, and we've been educating voters about Lawler's failures. And now that we've endorsed Kate Conley, who won the Democratic primary, we're going to be continuing our canvassing with an added focus of asking people to vote for her. Then moving on to Pennsylvania, we are really excited to be knocking on doors in communities in Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, which is being threatened by the data center build out. There are several data center proposals in the Lehigh Valley, Allentown, Bethlehem, and the surrounding areas that are where huge data centers are being proposed. Our longtime ally, the Lehigh County Controller, Mark Pinsley, is the Democratic nominee for a state Senate district, State Senate District 16. This is a really important district because Democrats only need to flip 3 districts to be able to take control of the Pennsylvania State Senate for the first time in a generation. And that would give Democrats a trifecta in Pennsylvania for also the first time in a very long time. So we're going to knock on 12,000 doors in these communities talking about the data centers that folks are facing out and how Mark Pinsley wants to pass a moratorium on data centers in Pennsylvania. And also, all of these voters happen to be in Pennsylvania's 7th congressional district, where we're not making endorsement, but is another battleground congressional district. Lastly, we've got California's 22nd district. This is where, again, Randy Villegas just won a contested primary election. He's running against incumbent David Valadao, who, along with pretty much every Republican, voted for the big, beautiful bill, so-called, and that cut SNAP food assistance funding for hundreds of thousands of Americans. This is one of the districts with the highest percentage of SNAP enrollees in the country. It's also a district that is struggling with its own water crisis, water wells that are just drying up in California's Central Valley. And Valdeo has been voting to cut water infrastructure funding. So we're going to be doing door knocking in rural communities around this district that are impacted by this water crisis, and we're going to knock on 6,000 doors. In this district and have a bunch of meaningful conversations. The last thing I want to say is it's our members that make this work happen. This is our first time surveying our members on all these elections. So if you're in one of these states, you have received a survey, a chance to weigh in on whether or not we should endorse in these races. And it's also our members who drive a lot of this work. I mentioned a bunch of the canvassing is volunteer driven canvassing, and we're also running volunteer phone banks every Tuesday, starting next Tuesday, in these districts and a handful of others. We're going to make 200,000 calls to voters in these priority districts, along with some of our national and environmental allies. So, yeah, so that's the work that's coming up, and it's really exciting. And I hope that you all will come along with us for it. Uh,
Thanks, Sam. And I think we have a video actually from Randy Villegas, and I am just going to play that for us right now.
Thanks. And sorry, to introduce Renzo Villegas, he is an amazing community leader in California's Central Valley. He is a school board member who banned the use of Roundup in the school district that he is on the board of, and is on our side on all of these issues. So it's a huge opportunity to kick out a Republican and elect a progressive. So yeah, this is a message from Randy.
Hi, everyone. Randy Villegas, candidate for Congress here in California's 22nd. I am a professor and auto repair shop owner and ready to fight for working families here in the Central Valley who've been abandoned by Congressman Valadao, who has voted to cut not just billions of dollars from Medicaid, but also programs from SNAP, WIC, and programs that our families rely on every single day just to survive here in the Central Valley. And it's because he is sponsored by corporations who continue to exploit our working families. He has taken corporate PAC checks from Amazon, from Chevron, from United Health, a corporation using AI algorithms to deny elderly people's claims so that they could continue to profit while our family members suffer. And to that, we say no more. We deserve a Central Valley where people don't have to question whether they can drink the water coming out of their tap, where they can breathe clean air, and have an environment not just to survive in, but to thrive in. When I was growing up in Bakersfield, we couldn't trust the water coming out of our tap because of high levels of arsenic and 1,2,3 TCP. We have communities to this day that don't have access to safe, affordable, and clean drinking water. And it's frustrating that people know about places like Flint, Michigan, but they don't know about Arvin, California. They don't know about Porterville. They don't know about Early Mart, which for the past 2 weeks actually hasn't had any access to water. And we've had to bring in bottled water. In fact, our campaign next week is going to be distributing bottled water to a community there in Early Mart because we're not waiting until Election Day. We're not waiting until 2026 or 2028, 2027. We need to actually provide for our communities and fight for our communities right now. And so I'm honored to be in this fight alongside you. We need to make sure that we have a champion for our environment, a champion for jobs, a champion for education and healthcare, and all the things that the Central Valley is on the front lines of. Our farm workers deal with pesticides and the extreme heat and working conditions. And so I will be a proud champion for farm workers. We need to make sure that we're actually taking a cue from other countries across the world that have banned, pesticides like Roundup because they've been linked to cause cancer. And we're here to say that we shouldn't have to go bankrupt just to see a doctor. Healthcare is a human right. Our residents shouldn't have to drive to Tijuana to get cheaper dental care or cheaper prescription drugs or cheaper healthcare. So if you're with us in this fight, please head over to randy.vote to help us win. We need you to donate your time, your money, your sweat, your sunscreen to help us knock on every door, make every phone call, and fight for the deal and the representation that we deserve. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam, for that great overview. And thank you to Randy Villegas for your message and for all you do to fight for our climate and our communities. And thank you all again for being here. Now that Sam has given us an important overview of what is at stake here in the midterms, who our climate champions are, and the work that Food and Water Action is doing to flip the House, I want to turn to your involvement. The promise of this evening's webinar is how to maximize your impact on the upcoming elections. Now, I know you all plan to get out there and vote, and that is so important to make sure you do that, but there truly is a lot more that we all can do. In a little bit, you'll hear from two of my colleagues about specific ways that you can join us in this work. But before we do that, I am excited to introduce our next guest, who's going to set my colleague's message up with some really important context. Social Psychologist Dr. Otis Fulton. Now, I host a webinar each month focused on different topics about our livable future. And every month, I get some form of the same question. Whether the webinar is about data centers or water affordability or PFAS, contaminated food, nuclear power plants, whatever it's about, people learn about these issues and they're ready to take action. And the question I get every month is, how do I get other people involved? How do I share this need for action with the people around me? How do I convince my neighbors? How do I invite my friends and family into this important work? Our next speaker, social psychologist Dr. Otis Fulton is here to shed some light on that question and share how it is identity more than information that people use to make these kinds of decisions, and how you can use that knowledge to understand how to invite people into this culture, in this case of knocking on doors, making phone calls, voting for climate champions, and making financial contributions that make this important work possible. Dr. Fulton, I'm so excited that you're here with us this evening. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and thanks for inviting me. Now that I'm retired from teaching, this scratches my itch. So this is great. This is wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, I'm a social psychologist, and I study how identity impacts behavior. So what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes, it is an election strategy. You all know far more about organizing elections than I do, but what I do know something about is people, and specifically why people do things, why we sometimes don't do things, even when we probably know we should, and how the people around us influence what we ultimately decide to do. The title of this, I hope you can see it, is People Like Me Do Things Like This. And I stole that line from the marketing guru Seth Godin, and I like it because it captures an enormous amount of social psychology in just 7 words. And I think it has a lot to tell us, each of us, what each of us can do between now and the midterm elections, which are, I agree, are so crucial. So let me start with something psychologists call reactance, or in technical psychological terminology, don't tell me what to do. Reactance is what happens when we feel like somebody's trying to restrict our freedom or push us into doing something. We become motivated to protect that freedom. Our sense of autonomy is really, really important to people. It's a basic human need. Sometimes protecting our autonomy means resisting the message that we hear. Sometimes it can even mean moving in the opposite direction. And you don't have to be a psychologist to recognize this. We've all experienced this. Someone starts telling you what you have to believe, what you need to do, or why only an idiot could possibly disagree with them. And somewhere in your brain, a little voice says, "Oh yeah, watch me." Now, think about the environment we're operating in during an election. People are being bombarded with messages telling them what to believe, who to vote for, what to be afraid of, what will happen if the other side wins, why they should be outraged about whatever happened in the last 15 minutes. And our natural response is often, oh, we need a better argument for them. We need more facts. We need more statistics. We need to run another ad. But there's a problem. Sometimes pushing harder just gives people something harder to push back against. So maybe the answer isn't always having a better argument. Maybe sometimes it's having a better messenger. And that brings me to what I think may be your most powerful tool in this election. It's you. The most powerful thing you bring to an election may not be what you know. It may be who knows you. So think about the last time somebody actually changed your mind about something that's important, something you really cared about. Who was that person? Was it a stranger with a really good PowerPoint presentation, or somebody who showed you a more meaningful statistic? Or was it somebody that you knew, somebody you respected and trusted? Because when somebody I know tells me why they care about something, I'm not just evaluating their argument. I'm evaluating that argument through everything I already know about that person. I know whether I trust them. I know what they value. I know whether they've been generally reasonable in the past. I know the things that we have in common. So Food and Water Action can send somebody an email. A campaign can buy an advertisement. All these things are important. Candidates can give speeches, but none of them can manufacture your 20-year relationship with your neighbor. That's something you already have. And that brings us to that one crucial sentence. People like me do things like this. And this is a wonderful shorthand for something psychologists have studied for a long time. Human beings are social animals, and when we're deciding what to do, one of the sources of information we use is other people, particularly people we perceive as being somehow like us. We're constantly, usually without consciously thinking about it, asking, what do people like me do? What do people in my community do? What do people I respect do? What's normal for us? Psychologists talk about this as being social proof for people, or sometimes as being descriptive social norms, the unconscious rules that we all live by. And there's a great psychology experiment that showed just how powerful social proof can be, and it involved hotel towels. You've probably stayed at a hotel and seen one of those little green cards in the bathroom asking you to reuse your towels. Researchers tested different versions of that message. One was essentially the standard environmental appeal: help save the environment. Pretty reasonable message. But another group of guests got a different message. They were told 75% of guests reuse their towels. In other words, instead of telling people what they should do, they told them what other people actually did. And a lot more people who read that message reused their towels. In fact, 30% more reused their towels. But here's my favorite part. Those same researchers made the social norm even more specific. They told some guests that 75% of the people who had stayed in that particular room reused their towels. And that produced an even stronger effect. About 15% more people reused their towels when they read that message. So think about how ridiculous that is for a second. Why should I care what some stranger who slept in room 327 before me did with their towel? I don't know her. I'm never going to meet her. And yet, even that tiny connection gives me information. People like me do things like this. Now, think about how much more powerful that information can become when the person isn't some anonymous hotel guest. It's your friend, it's your neighbor, someone you work with, someone you trust. And you discover that they're voting, they're volunteering, they're knocking on doors, they're donating to a candidate. Now, the behavior isn't just something an organization is asking me to do, it's something people like me do. And that's where something else starts to happen. We can move from I care about this to I act on this. So imagine somebody we'll call Susan. Susan cares deeply about clean water and the environment. She votes. She follows what's happening. She worries about the directions that things are going in. But she never thought of herself as an activist. Then a friend calls her and says, hey, I'm going out Saturday morning with Food and Water Action. Why don't you come with me? We'll grab some coffee and do a couple of hours. So notice what her friend didn't say. She didn't say, you need to become politically active. She didn't give Susan 7 statistics. She didn't send her a link saying, sign up to volunteer. She said, I'm doing this. Come with me. So Susan goes. And now something interesting's happened. She hasn't just expressed concern, she's acted. And our behavior gives us information about ourselves too. I care about this becomes I did something about this. And after enough experiences like that, it can become I'm someone who does something about this. There's a psychological difference between I voted and I'm a voter. You've probably heard that. Between I volunteered and I'm someone who gets involved. It's difference between a verb and a noun. Nouns beat verbs. The behavior starts becoming part of their identity. And that's where this feedback loop I'm going to show you comes in. Now, this is something very powerful that was actually hacked by Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and has made them into a multi-billion-dollar company. It's the psychology that underlies all social media sites. This is something called the social validation feedback loop. So let's stay with Susan. She shows up on a Saturday morning, and somebody knows her name. Her friend introduces her to some other people. She does something useful. Somebody says thanks. Maybe somebody says, hey, you were really good at that. And somebody else says, we're doing this again next Saturday. You should come. Look what's happening here. Susan expressed an identity through an action. Other people acknowledged and affirmed it. And that creates a little more belonging and certainty. Maybe these are my people. Maybe I belong here. And that reinforces her behavior, and she's more likely to do it again. And every time that cycle repeats, the connection between the behavior and the identity becomes a little bit stronger. So the first time, somebody may have to ask Susan to come, but eventually Susan's the person asking somebody else to come. And now something really interesting happens. Susan's behavior becomes social proof. Remember that term? It becomes social proof for the next person. Somebody's watching her about what do people like me do. So remember the hotel towels. Except Susan isn't an anonymous person who stayed in room 327 last night. Susan's my friend. And if Susan's doing this, maybe people like me do things like this. And that's how this starts moving beyond an individual behavior and toward a community norm. And here's the reason I'm telling all of you this tonight. You can start that loop. You don't need to be a professional organizer or the world's foremost authority on climate policy. And you certainly don't need to win an argument with everybody you meet. You already possess the thing I was talking about at the beginning of this. You possess relationships. It's interesting. Each one of us has an average of 150 people that we know in our social world. Think of them as people that you could invite to a big party. That's an average number. Some people are more and less, but 150, that's a lot. That's a lot of relationships. And, these are people who know you. They trust you. They're people who see themselves as being in some meaningful way like you. That gives you an opportunity that no television commercial, email campaign, or Facebook ad can duplicate. So what do you actually do with that? Four pretty simple things. First is just tell your story. Don't turn yourself into a walking political advertisement. Tell somebody why you care. Why are you worried? Why are you voting? Why did you decide to get involved? Your story carries information that a list of facts can never carry. Second, make a personal invitation. There's a big psychological difference between you should volunteer and I'm doing this on Saturday. Come with me. One's an instruction, the other is an invitation into a relationship. And third, do it together. The first action is easier when I don't have to walk into a strange place by myself and figure out whether or not I belong. So, bring me with you. And finally, recognize the action and invite the next one. I'm really glad you came, you say. That was fun. You were good at this. We're going to do it again next week. That's called social validation. It's very powerful. And I want to emphasize something important here. None of this is about manipulating somebody into becoming something that they're not. It's almost exactly the opposite. It's about helping people who already care about something take an action that's consistent with the values that they already have. And then helping that action feel natural enough that they might do it again. So if I had to reduce everything I've said to four words, here's what it would be. Concern, connection, identity, action. Concern matters. But millions of people are concerned about something and never do anything about it. Connection can turn concern into a first action. That first action is so crucial. That action can become evidence about who I am. And when other people recognize and reinforce that identity, action becomes easier to repeat. Eventually, I care about this can become this is what I do. And maybe even this is what people like us do. So as you think about the midterm elections, don't underestimate what you already have. You've got your relationships, you've got your credibility, you've got your story, and your ability to invite another person to do something with you. Because the most powerful thing you bring to this election may not be what you know. It may be who knows you. And if there's one sentence, again, I'd like to leave you with tonight, it's the one we started with. People like us do things like this. So thank you, and thank you for all the great work you're doing. It's super important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fulton. I'm noticing a lot of conversation in the chat. We've all seen this play out in different ways, sometimes good and bad, but I think this is a really important reminder of the power that we all have to connect to our community, and to become an example of doing these things. Yeah, I love that message. And in this case, when we're thinking about maximizing the impact of the midterm elections, of course, it's important to remember that within our communities where we might share some form of identity, whether that's our friends, family, or neighbors, that's where we can often make the most difference. And that's where we can gather to do this work. So Dr. Fulton, thank you again for helping us frame this conversation. With everything we've discussed so far in this evening in mind, let's get down to it. Here to talk about specific ways to gather your community and maximize your impact on the upcoming midterm elections are my colleagues, Michelle and Madeline. Michelle Allen is Food and Water Action's Volunteer Network Director, and Madeline Kelsey is the Assistant Director of Individual Philanthropy. Michelle and Madeline, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Janine. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm so excited to follow up Dr. Fulton, who I have learned a lot about the power of having meaningful, value-based relationships in nonprofit work. If any of you happen to have an interest in community-based fundraising, like I do, the book he co-authored, Social Fundraising, is fantastic. So yeah, we're really grateful to utilize his expertise as we grow our Food and Water Action membership program here. And so I recognize a lot of names in the chat. I know a lot of you. For those I don't already know, like Janine said, I'm Madeline Kelsey, Food and Water Action's Assistant Director of Individual Philanthropy.
Hey y'all, I'm Michelle Allen, Volunteer Network Director at Food and Water Action. Really excited to be here with you all and talk about flipping the house.
Yes, let's flip the house. So we wanted to share some ways you can take action this election season, where we do have a lot of opportunity, just to underscore what Sam has said. As we see the results from the primary races come in, it's really exciting to see so many Food and Water Action-endorsed candidates going on to the general election in November. And this progress that we're seeing so far, it tells us a couple things that I want to reiterate to everybody here. One is that, like Sam said, the issues of safe food and drinking water and stopping data centers are absolutely on the ballot this year and top of mind for voters. And the second thing is that this tells us is that our strategy as an organization of leveraging the power of everyday people to take action together in an organized way is working. And we want to build on that success we're seeing this election to win big in November. So yes, you are all here because you recognize the importance of electing leaders who will take concrete steps to hold Trump accountable to his incredibly cruel agenda, and who will work to pass policies like a national data center moratorium, which we really need. But what's also critical to talk about is the work we do in communities and states year round. So we are not an election-focused organization. Our focus is winning policy changes at the local, state, and federal level. And so to win those policy changes, we mobilize people to put pressure on our elected leaders. And then we use that power to go back to Congress and state legislators to pass policy that is going to protect our food and our water and our climate.
So let's talk about our goals around the midterm elections. So to hit the goals that we have, Sam talked about earlier, of flipping 4 House seats, we are going to knock on 167,000 doors. We are going to call 200,000 voters. And in order to do that, right, we need more people fighting alongside us because this work requires a lot of time, also requires some money too, right? So that is why we need volunteers and dues paying members. To ensure that we can hit those goals and flip those House seats, we need to recruit 500 new members and 200 new volunteers to Food and Water Action this election season. So we're going to talk in a moment about the ways that you can volunteer, but I do want to touch on the importance of membership. Food and Water Action members are the source of our grassroots power. Our members ensure that we have the resources that we need to mobilize people and hold our elected leaders accountable. and ensure that our communities and our health is protected over corporate bottom lines. Our members work alongside us to fight for the critical policy changes that we need and make us a sustainable organization. And my colleague Sam talked earlier about this, but members also give input on our campaign priorities and our candidate endorsements. Our membership dues start at just $5 per month or $20 for the year. I'm sure we have lots of Food and Water Action members here with us already, but if you are not currently a member, I do hope that you'll sign up. I hope that you will sign up yourself and also that you will encourage your family members, your friends, and your neighbors to join you in becoming not just a dues paying member, but also a volunteer. As you heard from Dr. Fulton, right, you have the power to bring new people to Food and Water Action, right? You are the most powerful messenger for the people who know you and who trust you. So we hope that you will bring your people to this election work alongside us this year. And now I'm going to kick it back over to Madeline, who is going to talk about a key action you can take to bring along your friends, families, and neighbors.
Yes, that's a great segue, Michelle. Yeah, so I hope you all become members. An additional thing you can do is host a gathering with your friends and family to share with them the ways that they can take action for the midterms. So if you like bringing people together, if you like playing the host, or if you just want to participate in the midterms like with friends and not do it individually, definitely come to our house party training next week. It's on Zoom, so it's virtual like this, and it's going to be on Thursday from 8 to 9 Eastern, 5 to 6 Pacific. And we're going to put a link into the chat so you can sign up to attend that. Then, like Dr. Fulton said, you and I, we're the most inspiring messengers for people who know us and trust us. I was actually just talking with a friend the other day, catching up, and the conversation, like it often does, like came around to like everything that's going on in the world. And one thing she said was, I want to do something for the elections. I know I need to donate. I know I need to volunteer. But there are so many organizations, there's so many candidates, and I feel overwhelmed researching it all. So then I don't do anything. And I think this happens to a lot of us. Like this has happened to me before with certain things. And in having found an organization that you all trust and that you believe is effective, which is I hope how you feel about Food and Water Action, you can offer your community a fun time getting together and give them easy ways to take action this election season. So getting involved for the first time can be like the biggest hurdle, and making that easy for people is a really important way you can help us build power this election season, and is a wonderful gift you can give your community too. And it opens the door for new people volunteering with us and becoming Food and Water Action members, which is really, really important. So again, that training is next Thursday. I hope you all will join us. And there we're going to share some tips for having a great time and a great gathering. And also share more about the materials we'll send you. We try to make it really easy for everyone. And if you can't make the training but you still want to host, you can definitely do that too. Just send me an email. I think Katie's going to put my email in the chat, and we'll get you everything you need. And then I'm going to kick it back over to Michelle to share a little more.
Thanks, Madeline. Next, we're going to talk about one of my favorite ways to take action on the elections, and that is calling voters. I say it's one of my favorite because it is one of the most impactful ways that you can turn people out to vote for climate champions like Randy Villegas and the other candidates that Sam talked about earlier. We have already been hard at work calling voters in key primaries around the country through our Calls for Climate. That is our weekly phone bank series that we organize with a few other organizations. And so far this year, we have already dialed 50,000 voters across California, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and helped climate champions win in the primaries. In fact, all of the candidates we called for won their primaries, like Randy Villegas, that you heard from earlier. But we know that calling voters, it works, and that's why we're going to keep doing it. We are going to keep hitting the phones until Election Day. So I hope to see you at a future calling shift. It's very easy to get plugged in. So every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time or 3 o'clock Pacific, we get together on Zoom, just like this. We talk about the candidate that we'll be calling for that day. We provide training on how to phone bank and some best practices for calling voters. And then we make calls together. It is a really great way to make an impact on races that are key to flipping the House, regardless of where you live. So between now and November 3rd, we're going to be calling voters every Tuesday and to flip key House seats across California, Michigan, Iowa, and Tennessee. And this is going to ensure we not only flip the House, but that we have more champions in Congress that we can rely on to hold Trump and Republicans accountable and fight for the bold policies that we need to protect our communities and our health. So, and with that, kick it back over to you, Madeline.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we're going to wrap it up here, but so we have our work ahead of us, certainly cut out. And I know the stakes are super high and we're all feeling the pressure of that. But we can really work together to recruit more volunteers and raise the money that we need to knock those 167,000 doors and call over 200 voters. So we will work not only to flip the House, but to build that long-term power for food and water action so that when new Congress is in session and when state legislatures meet again in January, we have more people fighting with us for policies like state and national data center moratoriums that we really, really need. And so, like I said earlier, we aren't just working in these communities come election time. We work year round to safeguard our food and our water and our climate. And we use the midterms to secure more champions and elect it to elected office. And one of the most important things you can do to help is to host a gathering for your friends and family and get them engaged as volunteers and members. But one thing I wanted to note too, if hosting isn't your thing, and some of us are shy, some of us would rather not, and you'd rather ask your friends and family to become Food and Water Action members in another way, maybe from behind the safety of your computer screen, we have a new member fundraising website that we're going to drop in the chat for you. And we made this so that it's really easy to help us build power for our work and make sure we're sending food and water and climate champions to Congress this year. So using this website to set up a fundraiser can be as simple as emailing your friends and family, asking them to donate and become a member to Food and Water Action. You can also ask people to donate for a special event you have coming up in lieu of gifts for like a birthday or a holiday. And there are a lot more suggestions on the site too. So definitely check it out. This is a great alternative to hosting if that doesn't work for you for whatever reason. Yeah. But we're really excited about all of the ground we can cover this election season. We've got a lot to do and we're ready to do it with you backing us and powering this very big group project we have of defending our democracy. What we're doing is working. So yeah, let's keep it up.
Yes, and now we want to hear from all of you. So in just a moment, a poll is going to pop up on your screen. Please answer the poll and let us know how you plan to maximize your impact this election season. This poll is really helpful information for us and is going to help us follow up with you after this webinar the way that you want to participate. So pausing for just a moment. Cue the Jeopardy music. Just kidding.
Let's keep that poll going here. Thank you, Michelle and Madeline, so much. To everyone here, we put a link in the chat for hosting a party and for the phone-a-thon, and another link that'll lead you to different options to start a fundraiser. So if any of that sounds good to you, please do sign up. Madeline is leading that host party training, and it should be a good time. Again, please I see people are still answering this question, so we'll keep this poll up. But with that, let's bring everyone back on camera. We only have just a couple minutes, so I'm just going to, ask everyone one question. Unfortunately, I don't have time for all the questions that came in, but we got some really good ones, and we'll give a little bit of time to this. Now, Dr. Fulton, I'm going to start with you. I have a couple of questions that revolve around the idea of how do I either convince people who won't listen without interrupting me, or talk to people who have the wrong kind of information without reinforcing what's already in their mind. How do we talk to people who have different opinions and have them hear what we're saying?
Yeah, it's a really good question. If somebody is talking over you and won't let you get your thought out, you're probably not in a conversation. You're probably in an identity defense conversation. So much of our politics is about, identities now. It's all wrapped up. So my first piece of advice would be to stop trying to win. The harder you push, the more likely you create what I talked about earlier, reactants. They're just going to push back against it. So instead of giving them another argument, ask them a question like, what is it about this issue that you think is so important, is most important to you, or what worries you about the other side of the position, and then actually listen to them. You're not agreeing with them, but you're changing the psychological situation from I'm trying to make you believe something to I'm interested in understanding what you believe. And you would be surprised at how people when you give people the opportunity to be heard, how far that goes in terms of your relationship with them and how they see you. And then, the other thing that's so important is that that approach preserves your relationship with them. I unfortunately have a lot of family members that I have to take my own advice on in this regard because they're on the opposite side. So that would be my advice.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Sam, I have a couple of questions for you. One is people are concerned about election disruption. What can we do to combat the possibility of election interference, voter intimidation, or false claims against election integrity?
Yeah, it's definitely a real fear and something that we're thinking about it every day. I think the first thing to say is Trump's bluster on this is most likely to amount to bluster. He cannot take over our election system, which is very locally distributed in terms of being run on a county by county basis. And he isn't going to pass unless the Democrats sort of have a monumental sort of collapse. He isn't going to pass his SAVE Act, which is his sort of like election overhaul bill. But we do need to be extremely vigilant because there are other things that he can do other than take control of the elections that would mess things up in a big way. Stuff like mobilizing ICE to to polling places. So we are being vigilant, and we are in each of the states that we're involved in. And someone asked a question along these lines about coalition. We are involved in a state-based coalition, and election protection is one of the main priorities of each of those coalitions. And for example, in Iowa, our staff are going to get a training on election protection and how to sort of like interact with election deniers when we see them sort of out in communities in the lead up to election day and on election day. So it is a real threat, and we're uh, training up to be prepared for whatever Trump throws at us.
Yeah, thanks. We only have a couple minutes left. One more quick question for you, Sam. Why focus on the House when the Senate is so important?
Good question. Yeah, the answer is because we, like I said at sort of the outset of my little spiel, that we're in this not just to win, but to build power. And if you look at the map of the places that are the districts that are flippable in the House, it just overlaps much more with the places where we want to build power. Places like Iowa, New York, Pennsylvania, California are places where we've been on the ground, where we want to be on the ground after November. The Senate are the top battleground states in the Senate are just not are not places where we have lots of organizers on the ground. I did mention Josh Turek, who is the Iowa, the candidate in Iowa, and where there are places where there are Senate battlegrounds, we're going to be talking to voters about those, but it's just about using our power as strategically as possible.
Thank you. We're about out of time. I want to give everyone else a chance for any last thoughts. We'll start with you, Dr. Fulton. Any final thoughts today on maximizing our impact on the upcoming elections?
As far as persuading and so forth, I was talking to you earlier, my 8 magic words. I can understand why you would feel that way. It's how I always start out with an argument with my wife and I, and she sees it's coming now, but it tells the person that I'm listening to you, and it just prepares the stage for a much better exchange than just stating your position and trying to persuade them. So I can understand why you would feel that way.
Yeah, thank you. Michelle, any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think something that Dr. Fulton said earlier is worth repeating. And I didn't catch the exact quote, but it was something like, you do not need to be a professional organizer or a policy wonk to be effective in the elections. You all here can make a big difference in the midterms by asking your family members, your friends, and your neighbors to get involved, because people are they're more willing to do these things that they're asked when asked by someone that they know and trust.
Yeah, Michelle, if I can just elaborate on that, you only need to do 2 things. Tell people why you got involved and tell people why you continue. That's all you need to do. That's the most powerful story that you could possibly tell. Don't worry about any statistics, just those 2 things, why I got involved and why I stay.
I love that. Madeline, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I'll keep it quick, but take time now to think about how you want to be involved this elections as things are heating up, and think about, write down, 3 or 4 people you want to bring along with you to whatever you're doing. That's my recommendation.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Madeline, Michelle, Sam, and Dr. Fulton, for being here with us tonight and answering these questions. Thank you, everyone in attendance, for showing up, submitting your questions, and being ready to get to work to elect climate champions who will fight for safe food, clean water, and a livable climate. As we've been saying all evening, this is a pivotal election with much at stake, and it is the people power, all of us, who will make that happen. So thank you so much for being here and for being a part of Food and Water Action community, fighting for safe food, clean water, and a livable climate. Let's make this happen. Before you all go, I have a couple of really quick closing announcements and reminders. First, as we've been saying all evening, this all takes an incredible amount of people power. We're up against challenges every day, but as you've heard today, we'll be knocking on thousands of doors, calling thousands of voters, registering people to vote, and having conversations about the important votes we need. We could not do any of this without you. Thank you again for your generosity and your support in this work. A reminder again that our sister organization, Food and Water Watch, will be hosting 2 upcoming webinars, How to Stop a Data Center in Your Backyard and Beyond on September 16th, and Water Affordability, Facts Behind the Crisis on October 21st. We'll put links in the chat for both of those, and I hope to see you there. Thank you again for joining me today. Please watch your email inboxes. We'll be sending out the recording of this event tomorrow, along with all of the resources that we shared today. Take care and see you next time.